But the way this is going to change recruiting, teams, they have about 20-something million to spend across sports however they want. Most teams are, at least in the Power Four, giving about $15 million of that to the football program. Because of this, NIL collectives, some programs are getting rid of them altogether. I think Ole Miss might have gotten rid of theirs. I think, there's a few schools that have. A lot of Power Four schools have done it, but the big boy ones like Texas, they've kept their collective. So let me tell you why. Texas's roster is way north of $50 million and has been for several years. Whereas a roster like a Rutgers has never been over $15 million. So now when they're able to use $15 million from the revenue share agreement set to go into this, this season, set to go into effect this season, they can use that money in recruiting, money they've never had. And now they can punch above their weight class more a little bit. But also everyone else they've ever competed with also has that $15 million as well. So it's not just like VTech, Virginia, and Rutgers. Those aren't the only schools of $15 million. Ohio State also got it. And their roster last year was north of $30 million, just like Texas's was. So these schools now have $15 million extra dollars. It's the same thing. The rich get richer. I guess, the poor get a little richer too. But big boy programs like Texas and Ohio State, they're still keeping that collective. So I don't really expect rev share to affect Texas much, if at all. In terms of the actual recruiting roster construction, they are still going to have more funds available than 99.999% of programs. But this will give programs like I don't know. Let me think of someone like a TCU. Their roster was not a $15 million net last year. I can say that. TCU in Texas.
Yeah.
Sorry?
I said you can say that pretty confidently.
Yeah.
May change this year, but.
Yeah, so TCU and Texas, very rarely, at least lately, have they actually competed for recruits. But if there's a kid from Fort Worth who's down to TCU in Texas, a year or 2 years ago, TCU's only offering that kid $125 freshman year. But Texas needs this kid. They offer him $400K freshman year. That's all TCU can do, and they want him even more than Texas does. Now TCU can compete up to a certain ceiling for that. With 500, they can offer 500. And if Texas doesn't feel like he's worth 500, they move on to the next kid. Their budget is higher or bigger than a TCU budget would be, but the TCU budget grows. So that makes, the recruiting battles between TCU and schools at their level, like a Tech, a Baylor, more competitive. So that's kind of I think the best way to explain the rev share in terms of high school. But don't really think it could affect Texas that much. What I will think will affect Texas that is out of their control, the July dead period. It is now the entire month of July is now a dead period, where previously or in the past, dead period would go into effect late June. It would open up for about a week at the end of July, and then it would go into effect for the entire month of August, pretty much. Now it goes into effect at the end of June and doesn't open back up till either like August 31st or September 1st. So that changes things, and you're probably like, oh, well, they only had a week in July. No. Last week. Huh?
It's a huge week. I mean, you talk about the pool party or whatever, the barbecue bash.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I feel like over the last few months, just since I've been here, those late July meetings have been talked about a lot. So
yeah, I mean, Will, think about this. This all happened at last year's end of July Texas Bash pool party. They got Jonah Williams on campus for the first time in like 8 months. That's when they, attempted the Hail Mary, and they ended up completing it a few weeks later. But that is when Texas was able to get him on campus to where they could give him that NIL number. And that's what helped them win. They hit the visit out of the park. It was the highest number he'd gotten at the time. They sold baseball, football, and then also they went pretty in-depth on it. It was a one-day unofficial, but they basically made it a condensed official visit in one day. They showed him the academic buildings, dorms, like everything that he would have seen on an OV, except on an unofficial, because they knew he was committing a few weeks after that, and they had to complete that Hail Mary. And they did. That same day, they had Josiah Sharma on campus. They snuck him on campus. He committed to Oregon at the end of June. It was supposed to be Texas. We had commitment quotes. Oregon dropped a bag last minute. He commits to Oregon. Basically, we can't get anyone at Texas to confirm or deny whether he's coming. And then he shows up. You can't miss him. He's only like 6'5", 350. We're like, holy crap, that's Josiah Sharma. About an hour later, he posts he's flipped from Oregon to Texas. That same day, Texas offered Max Wright. It was his first ever time on campus. He's now or was the first offensive line commitment in the 2026 class. They also had, other commits on campus that day, KJ Lacey, Diabell, Bo Barnes, you name it. And it's just been a super important visit week, like you said. And you go back to what would have been summer of 2023. That was Jonah Williams' second time on campus ever, like they've gotten a lot of use out of that over the years. So that's going to have to change the strategy a bit. You've never been able to do official visits during that July period, but it changes things because go look at Texas's schedule. They have 6 true home games because they have 7. One of them's in Dallas for Texas OU. 3 of those home games. What do you say?
They can also host recruits there, but yes, not the same as the other 6.
And also they at the Cotton Bowl, all they can give them is free tickets. They can't go and talk to those players or get them on the field before or after the game or in the locker room. So most of the time, while Texas is in the very early stages of their warm-ups, the coaches will call the kids as they're on their way to the stadium or they're already in the stadium in their seats. That's the only really recruiting you can do at the Cotton Bowl. But Texas, they have 6 home games this year. 3 of them are complete duds. It's 3 of the non-conference ones that Texas has already won pretty much. And then Vanderbilt, Texas A&M, and Arkansas. The entire month of October, they're on the road. There isn't a game for over an entire month in Austin because you have those 3 non-conference in a row, and then October, another game or 2, and then the last 3 games are in November. So your first 3 games, no one really cares about, and also it's the beginning of the Texas high school football season, so getting kids at campus there will be a little challenging. It'll also probably be, hotter. It's closer to the summer, earlier in the season. And then at the end of the year, I doubt Vanderbilt will have the same season they did last year. Who knows? Maybe they could do it. Pavia comes back. It won't be too exciting. I don't think Arkansas will be very competitive by then. And then we'll see about A&M. So you really only have one marquee home game this year to get visitors there, and it's Black Friday.
I was going to say, and the big part of this is Texas does not have a home game from, they've got September 20th against Sam Houston, and this is the reason why they decided to push this game up a week, or back a week, I guess, because you get to September 20th, and then you have a bye week, you're at Florida, you're in Dallas to play Oklahoma, you're at Kentucky, you're at Mississippi State. So for 5 weeks in a row, you don't have a home game. And then you play Vanderbilt, who very well could be a good team. But the month of October is always great for some of those finishing pieces in a class. And it seems like this year Texas may need more than some of those finishing pieces, by October. So being able to get guys on campus in the middle of the season, in midweeks is very hard. Just because of the way that the practice schedule goes and the school schedule and everything. So I think if we're talking about, combining this dead period in July and the schedule that Texas has, it's maybe the most impactful because more than ever, Texas has to have this class, at least 85, 90% locked up by the time that they're in Columbus on August 30th.
Yeah. And I mean, Texas, they've always made late additions, but they haven't really been in a situation like this before. Because, previously it was, all right, let's decide whether to host this kid in June, try to close on him later in the summer, or let's host him in the season, try to close on him in the season. And usually they try to get both those situations or both those types of recruitments to get to campus in July for that end of July pool party. That no longer exists. So, and with the in-season schedule being the way it is, Texas kind of has to decide, do we get a guy on campus this summer or in the fall? And in the fall, the 3 non-conference games are not much to come to Austin for. And then so if you push it to the other ones, then you have to wait till November. And signing day is only going to be early December again, December 4th. So, they're going to have to host kids during the bye week or do midweek visits during the season. They're going to have to figure something out. They can't only get by off game day visits, I don't think.
Yeah, the only other way they can make this happen is convince Jeff Levy that we'll give you an assistant job if you let us host official visitors as we whoop you in Stark Vegas on October 25th.
Yeah, they'd be better hosting official visitors in Fair Park than in Stark Vegas.
Yeah, no kidding.